game on the line. You can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and the Doc coming back at you today. And today we're going to play some games. Ethan, I think it's only fitting that we come on here and have some fun. And today we're doing it with blind comparisons, where we're going to throw up some stats on the screen about two different players. Pretty similar players, some similar stats. But then you may be a little bit surprised when we reveal the names of who these players are. We're going to have some fun. We got 5 blind comparisons to go through here today.
I'm so excited. I've never been on a blind date, but I love doing blind comparisons.
I mean, I guess they're tied together somehow.
It involves people being blinded.
Somehow, right? It's got that going for it. But anyway, before we get into it, we do have a draft guide to give away. I got to give it away to Mike Besaw, and hopefully I didn't butcher your last name here, Mike. This draft guide was donated by another member of the community. Juan Garcia donated this draft guide. We picked a random winner. Mike Besaw, it's yours, my friend. I already messaged you here on YouTube, so respond to me in that message or an email, and I'll get you hooked up here today. But now it's time, Ethan, to head in to the first blind comparison. We're talking about some wide receivers here today. It's not a big myth. It was in the show title, but we're going to start off here and throw some stats up on the screen. Now, there's going to be a big question mark at the top. I'm not going to tell you who these guys are. Ethan may have an idea because we went through this together. But outside of Ethan, ain't nobody else on earth know who these guys are as of right now. So let's go ahead and throw these up here on the screen. And we'll kind of go through here a little bit and see some of the glaring differences. If we had to choose based off of stats alone, which guy would we choose just looking at the surface stats here? So we see targets obviously goes in the heavy favor of the player on the right here, 107 to 85. So that's something to really pay attention to. But after that, I mean, yardage isn't a huge difference. 150 yards, touchdowns are there in line. Red zone targets pretty similar. Team pass attempts. I mean, really, Ethan, the biggest difference that I see here is the price tag is a little bit cheaper there for player on the left.
Yeah, that's really the biggest difference. Obviously, opportunity favors the guy on the right. But for the most part, in terms of efficiency, in terms of getting open, in terms of red zone opportunities, these guys are pretty much equal.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at fantasy points per target here at the bottom, they're almost identical, 1.81 and 1.82. So what that tells me right off the bat is if player on the left here can get a few more targets, he's going to be just in line with the player on the right. I mean, they're going to be neck and neck right here, but I can get the other guy 4 rounds later. So in my opinion, depending on how my draft has gone, I'm probably going to take the value pick here, get the guy in the 10th round, and hopefully he's in a good situation where he could get some more targets this year. And I think he may be somebody that could get some more targets here this year. And it's just fitting that you're the doc of the channel, Ethan, because you can talk about these two guys. The first one we're talking about here is Mike Williams, is actually the player on the left. And Mike Williams struggles to stay on the field every single year. But if this guy can play the majority of the games this season, he could be a huge surprise for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Williams, definitely injuries are a big concern for Williams. He came into the league injured, but whenever he gets a chance, whenever he gets the targets, he does make things happen. I mean, he's a big body receiver. He's a big play threat. And so when you're talking about a guy that you're getting in the 10th round, Mike Williams is a guy that I find myself targeting often, and he's starting to get a little bit of hype. So I imagine that by the time that people are actually drafting, this could be 9th round, maybe even the end of the 8th, and then it becomes a value discussion. But right now, 10th round for Mike Williams is, I think, pretty cheap compared to what his upside is, especially with an entire season, an actual offseason with Justin Herbert.
Plus, when you look at T. Higgins, 107 targets. They've added Jamar Chase this offseason. Does he see 107 targets? Does he see more? Does he see less? It's just a question mark, right? I love me some T. Higgins. I am a big T. Higgins guy, but the addition of Jamar Chase hurts his value. I mean, it's 100% apparent. Jamar Chase is going to have the eye of Joe Burrow a lot this year. So if there's any regression in targets and Mike Williams stays on the field, these two are eerily similar here for 2021. Next one. Let's move on to the next blind comparison. I should have made you wear a blindfold this entire show. That would have made it entertaining. but we don't have one, and we didn't think about it ahead of time. So I can talk about who's next here. And then this one, crazy similar, right? We got two guys just right around 125, 130 targets, both of them hovering around 90 receptions. A little bit more touchdown upside for player on the right, but you can see the team pass plays are identical. That's kind of odd. Fantasy points per target, pretty similar, but their price tag is also pretty similar. What stands out here in this one to you, Ethan?
Well, one thing, definitely you get a weight around. And so when you're talking about two players that are putting up basically identical numbers, how big is that one round difference? I mean, if you like one guy, the guy on the right, you might be more apt to choose the guy on the left because you know you're going to get similar production in terms of those targets. I like that they're both, high target guys. Those are players that, we know that they're going to get opportunities. So, and they're pretty efficient with those opportunities. I mean, obviously, fantasy points per target favors the guy on the right, but so does touchdowns. And that's definitely skewed a bit by that high touchdown rate, 5 more touchdowns for the guy on the right. But, for the most part, these are basically identical players, and their ADPs reflect that.
Yep, exactly. And I'll go ahead and reveal them here in case you haven't figured it out yet. It's Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, teammates on the Los Angeles Rams. That's why their team pass attempts are identical. See, you thought we were trying to trick you. No, they play on the same dang team. But a lot of people look at these two year in and year out, Ethan, and they can't decide. They know that they're going to get volume. They're going to get targets every single year, but it's a hard decision to make on draft day. Am I going Coop? Am I going Cooper Kupp? Or am I going with Robert Woods? Which one am I going with? That's a question that a lot of people face. And when you kind of hide the stats from people, you see the higher touchdown total for Robert Woods, and that's immediately probably where you gravitate to. But seeing that their fantasy points per target are pretty similar, it's not that big of a deal waiting one more round, going Cooper Kupp, and expecting a little bit more touchdowns here in 2021 with only 3 just last year. The addition of Matthew Stafford in this offense could definitely raise that number.
Yeah, the big question, I guess, for me is who does Matthew Stafford prefer? Because
exactly.
Obviously these targets are coming with Jared Goff. We've got a new quarterback in town. Who does he favor? Does he favor a guy more like Cooper Kupp, who does get 0.2 yards more of target separation? Is Stafford going to prefer a guy that seems to get a little bit more open, or is he still going to default to Robert Woods, who seems to be the guy that is scoring all the touchdowns? So I think this is a case where I don't think you're going to go wrong with either guy. And I honestly believe that you could flip their touchdown totals this year, and it could look pretty similar in terms of everything else. So, touchdowns are not a sticky stat. So, year to year, it changes quite a bit. I would not be surprised to see Cooper Kupp, scoring 8 touchdowns this year through the air with Matt Stafford.
Nope, wouldn't surprise me one bit. All right, moving on. Third game. Here we go. Some more stats up on the screen. This one, I'm going to put an asterisk on this one, Ethan, because I contemplated even using this, but I'm not going to tell the people why until afterwards. Because I have a feeling if I don't state this at the end, I'll have, Timmy and Bobby and Johnny and everybody, you didn't state this in the video, in the comment section. So I don't want all of that. So I'll preface that after we talk about the numbers here. But player on the left here, a large gap in targets, 110 to 84, a few more receptions. Yardage, though, goes the opposite way to player on the right. Same with touchdowns, red zone targets. Then we're all of a sudden super flip back and going to the player on the left. It looks like two teams that are going to throw 40-plus times a game. But look at the disparity in the ADP, Ethan. We have player on the left in the 15th round. We have player on the right in the 4th round. That is That's what you call a huge gap. However, and maybe I want to see if you agree with this, the fantasy points per target at 2.27 for the player on the right just tells me if that target total goes up at all, guy's going to have a great year because he's scoring a lot of points with the touches he is getting. Which way would you go here in this one?
This one's actually really tough because obviously we talked about these players before, but looking at the stats on the left, I'm not sure that I realized that the player on the left had this type of opportunity. It really is surprising. I mean, these are numbers that, even just compared to the last two guys, I mean, heck, 110 targets, that's that's a pretty good opportunity share.
Yep.
And 17 red zone targets, like that is just outrageous. I'm a little disappointed that he only had 4 touchdowns with that many red zone targets. But again, from a just a pure price perspective, the guy on the left is like can't miss, right? Like this is a guy that you have to have on your team.
And that's exactly why I wanted to do this comparison, because I couldn't make it through an episode without talking about Russell Gage. Russell Gage is player on the left, Chris Godwin on the right. Now, the reason I said there needs to be an asterisk on this is Chris Godwin missed some time. He did not play a full season. I believe he only played 12 games. However, we're talking about Russell Gage, who was the team's wide receiver 3. He saw that bump when Julio was injured. So that's why you see that increase in targets. So I wanted to make sure I threw it out there because it's almost insane how many people still don't respect Russell Gage. And now with no Julio Jones, even though they brought in Kyle Pitts, Russell Gage has an opportunity here with 110 targets last year to put up solid numbers, and you get him in the 15th round as of right now.
Yeah, that's a steal.
I couldn't let it go by. I'll take the asterisk. I'll take the comment. I don't know about Chris Godwin, but no. I mean, you got to look and you got to respect Russell Gage. All right, next up, moving on to what is this? Set number 4 here. And set number 4 got some big numbers in it. We're not talking about guys end of draft. I mean, there's some 2 pretty high performing wide receivers. You got both of them with 130 plus targets, both of them with 90 plus receptions. Both of them hovering right around 1,100 total yards, close in touchdowns. Red zone targets are separated by 1. I mean, this is starting to get pretty similar. Even their fantasy points per target are only separated by 0.21 fantasy points per target. The difference here, the main difference, is their ADP. Player on the left is going in the 7th. Player on the right in the 3rd. Which one you liking, Ethan?
This one is tough because I feel like on paper, these guys are very similar. The target separation stat really surprises me that the player on the left, really getting a lot more separation on his targets. When we announced these players, I think you're going to be a little surprised by that, or at least I was surprised by that. Player on the right, definitely making more of his opportunities in terms of touchdowns, but only really, as far as just getting the opportunity, they both had basically the same red zone target. So, I'm probably going to lean player on the right just because I feel like in terms of just total production, I feel like knowing the player.
But you don't know the player. That's what makes these so fun. Is you look hard at the stats and you're just like, man, I want to take player on the left, and then I'm going to show you these names, and you're going to be like, oh hell no.
I feel like and this is where it gets really tricky because I feel like when 2 players are similar, you always default to, well, the guy on the left is way cheaper. Mm-hmm. But I would definitely say in this case, I like the other thing that I didn't mention, that as I like the team pass attempts, I think player on the right is a lot more likely with that passing volume to repeat, just because I feel like, we're talking about almost 6 more, or I guess actually 6 more pass attempts per game. So team opportunity favors the guy on the right as well.
All right, well, here we go. Let's reveal him. Player on the left is Robbie Anderson. Player on the right is Amari Cooper of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, a lot of people are going to come in and say, yeah, but that was without Dak for the most part, right? Dak was hurt half the year. Amari suffered. Go look at Amari Cooper's 2019 stats with Dak Prescott. Amari Cooper's stats were almost identical. So the jump wasn't that big. His stats from 2019 to 2020, super similar. So, and that was with Dak Prescott, right? So still a great year for Amari Cooper, but Robbie Anderson's just a name a little bit cheaper. Got some chemistry with Sam Darnold. We know they're going to throw a lot in Carolina. The defense isn't that great, so they're going to be trailing a lot. Some big plays for Robbie Anderson. Yeah, you just never know. But this is what makes it fun, because right here, during this one, is the first time you said, well, seeing that the player on the right and knowing who he is, that's what makes these fun, though, because you don't know. I mean, we know, but you all watching, you don't know. So when you look at the stats, you got to be careful. And this is why we preach this in all of our shows. You can't just look at surface stats and pictures of players and, oh, this is what this guy, I remember his name from last year. You got to dig a little bit deeper and take your bias and put it aside sometimes, because that's where you really find some good value. So we'll go ahead and move on to the last one here. This one, I was going to cheat and give you something, but I'm not going to tell you. Anyway, we're going to move on. I was going to give a little bit of a hint, but I think people may guess it if I give them a hint, so I'm not going to. Another eerily similar duo, both 109 targets. Both right there around that, 62 to 74 receptions, between 6 and 11 touchdowns, more red zone targets for player on the left. Both teams throw over 41 times a game. The target separation, in my opinion, heavily favors player on the right. A lot more separation. I was a little surprised when you see who player on the left is that his target separation was that low, because I can remember a lot of games last year where he was basically like by himself on the field. Fantasy points per target, both of them hovering right around 2.0 points per target, which is great in fantasy football. And then their ADP, player on the left in the 6th, player on the right in the 4th. Where are you going, Ethan?
This one is tricky because I feel like just looking at their stats, you can kind of tell that these are two different stylistic players in a lot of ways. Obviously, player on the left, very efficient in the red zone. 11 touchdowns on 13 targets is pretty darn impressive when you're talking about just an efficiency standpoint. Clearly, he knows how to score touchdowns, but that target separation is that's not good. 1.15, you're talking, 90th or worst in the league. And so that's clearly a concern because he's not getting that separation. Player on the right is winning all over the field and getting plenty of separation. So, player on the right, I feel like is, going to give you more consistency, not going to be quite as reliant on the touchdowns, but can still give you some with 6. So, again, this is kind of, these guys are very eerily similar. I know that's the whole point of this episode, but I think their stats show stylistically how they play a little differently.
Yep, I 100% agree, and we'll go ahead and reveal them here. Player on the left, Chase Claypool. Player on the right, CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys. Now, like I said, I remember a lot of opportunities here this past season where Chase Claypool just seemed like he was open a lot. He wasn't. 1.15 yards of separation on targets is, we're talking about a little over 3 feet. And I understand in the NFL, 3 feet is open, but that's not a great number for Chase Claypool. I would have expected that number to be a lot higher, somewhere right around where CeeDee Lamb is at. 1.56, I see higher. His teammate, Chase Claypool's teammate, Deontay Johnson, a year ago was right around, 2.2, 2.3 yards of separation. Some huge numbers there. I know Tyler Lockett's always up there. But yeah, when you see the names, you're like, man, I love CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is going to crush it this year. Well, you can see that he's not far off from being Chase Claypool. So Chase Claypool, somebody you can get two rounds later. The differences, they both play in offenses. We know they're going to throw the ball. And both of these offenses are loaded with wide receivers, right? They're both a minimum 3 deep there to start a starting lineup.
Yeah, again, my biggest concern is just that touchdown number. 11 that's a big touchdown total. Can Chase Claypool repeat that with the target separation being kind of an issue still? That target separation, while it doesn't seem like a lot, obviously 3 feet is 3 feet. Getting that extra 1.5 feet of target separation is the difference between the reception totals. 12 more receptions for CeeDee Lamb, definitely giving him an advantage in terms of PPR leagues. And so, he just gets open more and catches more. So while Chase Claypool, being a physical freak, is definitely dominating in the red zone, I do like the consistency that a guy like CeeDee Lamb is going to give you from just a reception total. And his target could honestly go up. He could see easily 130 plus targets this year. So with Claypool, I don't know if we'll ever see, that level of target volume just with the other guys that are on the team right now.
Yep, I think he's a little bit more reliant on some type of an injury throughout the year in order to get those kind of targets. But it's a fun game to play. And when we talked about doing it, we're like, man, this is something that we don't do a whole lot. A lot of channels don't do stuff like this. So we figured we started off with some wide receivers. If you enjoy it, let us know down below in the comment section. Maybe we can do it for running backs next week. If it's something that you enjoy, it's fun to kind of look at things in a different way, right? We're trying to be fresh. We're trying to come up with new ways to consume content because it's the end of July and everything is like echoing in the fantasy football world. We're trying to be different than that. So if you enjoy that, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. We're crossing in on 116,000. If you're watching this show and you have yet to subscribe, why? What do we got to do to earn your subscription to the channel? Because we're giving you daily content from here until the end of the year. Once the season starts, we have some banger ideas coming, Ethan. I'm talking straight fire ideas. I mean, we're even going to help you, give you ideas for your game day meals when it comes time to the season. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss it. We appreciate your support. Do us a favor, hit the like button as well while you're clicking subscribe. It only takes a second, and it helps us out greatly here on YouTube. But for myself and the doc, hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, let us know down below in the comment section. Let's talk about some of these guys. Which guys were you a little bit surprised on? Did we catch you off guard on any of these? And if we did, let us know who they are down below. But hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week. And for myself and the doc, we'll talk to you later.